great shape. One of the only guys who really nailed it right from the beginning of the prejudging. And he finds himself in the top 10 at the Olympia. Can't wipe that smile off his face.
Gentlemen, spread out,
two
please.
athletes in from the left on your screen.
Everyone's got to take a step. The big stage. Let's go.
The biggest surprise to me here, to be perfectly honest, is that Dennis Wolf hasn't been positioned next to Sean Roden. It's pretty clear that they're battling for 3-4. So to have Phil and Kai in between them is a little surprising to me.
Thank you, Rope. Gentlemen, front double bicep.
As we talked about earlier, Branch Warren really making an impression this year, showing up in phenomenal shape, and you see him there at the top 10.
Front lat spread.
There's your two favorites, Kai Green on the left and Phil Heath on the right.
Side chest.
I think the gap has narrowed between them from last night. I think Kai's legs look better front to back as well as his back. His torso, to me, still is not popping out as much as we would like it to. It looks kind of flat.
Back double bicep.
But definitely the gap between Heath and Green closer than it was last night for me.
Back lat spread.
When they came on earlier, Dave, we talked about who
Side
benefited more
tricep.
from this 24 hours between last night and tonight. And then, clearly, Kai Green has benefited more from the time. I don't think it's enough to catch Heath, but the gap between them has closed significantly, and I think it's because Kai looks to be
Abdominal
peaking
and thighs.
tonight, not at the prejudging.
Well, you made a point that Phil Heath looked to be peaking even early on in the prejudging last night, and then faded a bit as the prejudging went on. And then Kai, on the other hand, was getting stronger as the prejudging,
And then we never got that final comparison, side by side.
Right. And a lot of that had to do with, again, the fact that they almost got into a physical altercation on stage last night at the prejudging. Heated words exchanged. The judges were screaming at them on the microphone to separate. And then they actually
Gentlemen,
did
if you're
separate
ready,
them because it was so
pose down.
So you'll see a pose down here. This, again, is these guys having some fun. Judges have gathered the information that they want. Are you surprised that you didn't see more shifting up there, or do you think that the judges already had a pretty clear idea of what they were thinking as far as the top 10 went, obviously, who they called out, but then, who those top 3 and 4 were going to be?
I think they had a pretty clear idea, and I think the indication to me is that they had already decided or felt very strongly about third and fourth, because to not have Dennis Wolf and Sean Roden next to one another, if they felt that was super close, if they felt that was very tight, it wouldn't have made sense to have them separated by Phil and Kai.
Right.
It may also be indicative that they wanted to make sure to get a look at Phil and Kai. You notice last night, ironically, they had Phil and Kai separated by Dennis and Sean, and tonight it was the opposite, Dennis and Sean separated by Phil and Kai. So that suggests to me that they already knew where they wanted to go with the third and fourth place. As far as first and second, I think the gap has narrowed. I think Phil wins this contest, but the 24 hours has definitely benefited Kai Green more than Phil Heath. And neither one still, in my opinion, really when we look at our top 5, the only athlete that stands out to me who looks to be better than last year's Olympia is Sean Roden. I think Dennis Wolf was better last year, not because his conditioning was better. He had great conditioning this year and great conditioning last year. The difference was in the fullness. With Kai, he was very flat through his torso, through the prejudging, was also holding water. I think he was sharper last year. I think Phil was both bigger and sharper last year. Roden, I think, looked better this year. Dexter Jackson looked about the same, always in great shape. Perhaps the legs a little fuller last year. So overall, I think last year's Olympia, we saw the guys dial it in better. than we did this year, which is why the 24 hours later makes a bigger impression on us, because as that time went on, we saw better conditioning from a lot of these athletes, or more fullness, depending on who it was. And Big Ramey. Big Ramey definitely improved from yesterday to today, significantly, and improved from the beginning of the prejudging to the end of the prejudging last night, which also suggests that he had mistimed it by quite a bit as well.
This is always one of my favorite parts of the event, when the competitors hop off stage and walk around in the crowd, mostly because of the people's faces in the crowd. It's this mix of being terrified and excited at the same time, because there's all these massive guys that are surrounding them, but at the same time, they're so excited to be around these individuals.